From the 1st of the 5th month of 1438, Satanic Theological Disputes, an interpolation into the verses and sayings. Spontaneous abortion, the realization of the possibilities of natural disasters equal or greater to that humanity has already experienced, and sober intoxication that reaches insanity becomes more and more common. How do we understand the mystic importance of the risks of nature? Then we come to Al-Quran 22:3, mentioning humanity dividing on issues of God and mythology with what they don't know, while being a follower, a tabe, if you continue, of each Shaitan Marid. Marid is the particularly strong, rebellious, and Shaitan is, or at the end, the removed from, the devil, so the rebellious devil. It is very possible that the authentic mythology that comes through demons varies widely in their beliefs and practices. In between we have mention of the drive to the torment of the scorching fire, Adab-e-Sa'ir, sex-producing children in particular stages, resurrection, literal and figurative prostration of the animals and forces of nature, pilgrimage, animal sacrifice not being about blood or flesh, divine love not being for treacherous ingratitude, and the Hellfire Club, Ashabul Jahim, making efforts against God's signs and portions. Since these don't seem to be dealt with for that alone in what is supposed to have been the first Islamic chapter, Surah, to mention fighting. Surah, okay. It would appear that those in the Muslim world who have actually harmed people for only opposing Islam in media have been in opposition to Islam as well. Even if no spiritual being takes literal part in the body and fluid of offerings, it is very clear that these are the means. The stage of beings and things are important to consider in our rituals and contemplation. What are the signs and portions Satan and the devils might present to their believers? Al-Quran 22:52 mentions that a shaitan had an effect in throwing something into what is derived from what came through every apostle, Rasul, and every exemplar prophet, Nabi, before Muhammad. But God is supposed to have abrogated the inclusions of shaitan by showing the wisdom of his signs. An example is between Al-Quran 53:19-20 and Al-Quran 53:21, with the scribes that wrote the words of the polytheist among Quraysh, saying, "These are the exalted cranes whose intercession is to be hoped for," having their copies destroyed and them not being allowed to write any more Quran. Another is in the Faith Under Fire show. I don't know if that's still going, but there's bound to be something like that. Another is in the Faith Under Fire show, way of making noise over people of other faiths, scripture, and discourse that reminds of Al-Quran 41:26. Al-Quran 41:26. Another way is how conservative groups of every faith have accepted contrary ways to those alleged to be from God that find no actual support within their own sacred texts. Another Wait, did I put a double negative there? So they find ways that are contrary to that which is alleged to be, from God within their own sacred texts. Another is how the Bibles and other attempts at rendering a sacred history or treatise are clearly fragments with changes and blends of various source material. What are Satan's scriptures, and how have they been preserved or corrupted? Al-Quran 22:53 teaches that some will be separate in their violations as a result of the tests God allows by Shaitan's inclusions. There is a great truth behind the idea that people show their own sickness in the claims about spirituality that they decide to believe and act out. Some would soften their hearts in opposition to that disease. This is followed by the reference of the understanding, being able to know what is from God and what is from devils. God calling for some to immigrate in His cause. Hajaru fi sabil ilah. Some don't survive being immigrants, and people who believe these things bow, ka'u, and prostrate, sujudu, in worship of Allah, among more striving while following the law of least effort to live out that system of judgment, ad-din. It can be said that there is only two religions: surrender or submission to God, and Satanism. All else can be said to be a blend, with some gaps where people reject both to form their own ideologies.